So, I mean, could it be my new favorite compact 35mm rangefinder? So today we're talking about the Olympus 35RC. Now, I am no stranger to Olympus. I've shot with the 35SP, which is kind of my go-to outside of the Konica 3A. I've shot with the Olympus Trip 35. I've shot with the Olympus Pen. I've shot with the Olympus XA, the Stylus, the Mewtwo, the OM10s, the OM1s. And the Olympus, Olympus is just really great at building compact 35mm bodies. I mean, the OM series, they're compact for the SLR standard. The Trip 35, the 35SP, those are compact rangefinders. The Pens, those half-frame cameras, those are compact. The XA being one of the most compact rangefinders available. The Styluses are great, fan favorites. Overpriced in my opinion, but nonetheless solid point-and-shoot cameras with that collapsible lens. So I definitely think Olympus knows this space really well. And so when I saw this pop up on Marketplace, I was really curious to try it out because the SP is one of my favorite rangefinders. And of course the XA being that pocket size, it's really a great go-to as well. So this is kind of a hybrid, kind of an in-between, see if it was something worth hanging on to, or whether I could ditch the SP and kind of downsize the body to something like this. So we're gonna go over the pros and cons, things I love about this camera, things that I wish could be a little bit different, but given the size, you kind of have to deal with it, and whether it's a right fit for you. So again, it's that happy medium between like the Trip 35, which is pretty much fully automatic, but it's 35mm rangefinder nonetheless, and then the 35SP, which is a little bit bigger, slightly more standard size 35mm rangefinder. So size-wise, as you can see, very compact, love it. I mean, the fact that a roll of film fits in there perfectly, and it's just the right size. It has a film advance, not the little gear like the XA. I much prefer advances over gears, so a plus for that one. Usually when you start getting down to the size, it either goes automatic or they take it away and you get the little gear. It has a self-timer, it has a cable release, the viewfinder is great, it's got a rewind knob, you have your battery compartment down there. It takes those old PX batteries, so you'll have to use the modern replacement for that. Got it with the lens hood, which is always a big plus if you get it with the lens hood. Shutter speeds. The top shutter speed is 1/500. It goes down to bulb, but they skipped a few in between, which I find interesting. It goes from 500 to 250 to 125 to 60, 30, 15, and then bulb. So they skipped 1/8, 1/4, 1/2, and there's nothing below 1 second either. Actually, there's not even 1 second. It stops at a 15th. So I don't see that as a big issue because honestly, you're not really going to use those speeds too often, especially with a camera like this. I mean, this isn't something you go shoot long exposures at night with. You could if you wanted to because they still left bulb there, but those aren't settings people are really going to miss out on not having on something this size. If I'm going to shoot exposures like that, I'm going to use a more heavier body SLR and a better lens and make sure I get exactly what I want instead of being kind of stuck with limited settings of a rangefinder to begin with and trying to force something out of this that it's really not meant for. So another big thing that usually happens when you downsize like this is you lose on the viewfinder. It becomes difficult to use, to see, picking focus or even composing your shots can become a hassle. And my 35SP has a fantastic viewfinder. The XA isn't the best, but nonetheless it gets the job done. So with this viewfinder, what's great is not only do you have your frame lines and everything like that, on the bottom it shows your apertures and the top it shows your shutter speeds, which is very uncommon for a lot of film cameras. Usually you'll get one or the other, and if we want to go into detail we could break it down. I'm sure there's plenty that have both in there, but that's not kind of a standard, that's not usually the case, especially when you start getting this small. So the fact that you can see your shutter speeds up top and your apertures down below, and you'll have the needle that pops up so you can see exactly where it needs to be. The focus patch is decent. I will say I really didn't have too much of an issue nailing focus unless I was kind of shooting from the hip. The patch it's a good size, it's right there in the center, it's easy to see the guidelines. I don't have to squint or kind of maneuver the camera around to kind of figure out where exactly I am. It's relatively easy to pick out your focus. On the note of focus, the focus ring here on front, of course it goes from 3 feet, 1 meter, all the way up to infinity. And what's nice about this is, for example, with the XA, Picking your focus, you have a little lever up front, and so your focus pull is very narrow. You have about that much space to pick your focus. And then, bigger SLR lenses, sometimes the focus is 2 or 3 complete turns to get from one end to the other. So you don't want something that's really small, because then you're really struggling to barely move that lever to get your focus. And you want something really long because it takes forever, and then you're going back and forth. This, given its size, the amount of range here to adjust your focus is pretty good. I thought it was going to be a little bit trickier and a little bit more sensitive to kind of nailing my focus down, but it is actually very quick, very simple. It's smooth, easy to use, and I was very pleasantly surprised with that as well. Of course, shutter speed right up here on top. You have your shot count up here as well. I almost forgot to mention, this is a 42mm f2.8 lens. So a 2.8, it's great. It's not a 3.5. It's of course not a 1.4 or 1.8. That would be crazy. But it's a 2.8, so it's going to be the same as you would get with the Stylus Mewtwo that everybody loves, but probably in a little bit better form factor. Of course, not as pocket friendly, but still, it's going to be a full-bodied SLR lens and a very compact camera. Could you stick this in your pocket like an XA or stylus? No, but if you take off the lens hood, I mean, it's not that bad, and you can easily, well, actually, you could put that in a pocket now that I look at it. But if not, you could easily put this into a backpack. You could put it in the car, glove compartment, anywhere. This is very travel friendly, very compact, run and go, a daily camera, to document your life or whatever else you want to shoot with. So your ASA or ISO is on the front of the lens here. And then now we come to my big downside of this camera. So with any camera, you have some space between the body of the camera and where your dials are for adjusting things. There's usually a little bit of play, a little bit of space. Because this is so compact, your f-stop is butt up against the frame of the camera. So it's difficult to get in there and adjust that. And you can't really do it at all, honestly, without also adjusting the focus. There's no way to grab just that dial. Most film cameras fit pretty well in my hands, but I can imagine if you had, big fingers or something like that, trying to get in there and adjust that f-stop is rather difficult. And I found myself looking down at it a lot of times and kind of pinching at it to make those adjustments like this, because it was just easier to get in there and do that than try and squeeze at it like this and get really down in there and then adjusting the focus. And then, okay, now I got it right. Now I can bring it back, focus, and take the shot. I suppose I can deal with that. It was actually a smoother transition and not as cumbersome and annoying as I thought it would be, although it's definitely not as good as other 35mm rangefinders available. So I shot with Palm Panchromatic black and white ISO 400 film in this, and the results came out pretty good. It seems like all the shutter speeds and everything on this were accurate, and I am pretty impressed with the amount of shots that I nailed focus on fairly well, and just how easy it was and how comfortable I felt using this, going from a bigger body or a smaller body to something like this mid-range. It's not as quiet as some other ones, but it's definitely not as loud as a mirror shutter for sure. As far as settings, now there's a few interesting things about this. It is fully manual except for the aperture. You can switch that and put that over to A. So it becomes a shutter priority camera. But in doing that, if it sees that a shot is going to be overexposed or blown out, if of course you have a battery in it, the meter's working, and you have the aperture set to A for automatic, if it thinks that your shot is going to be overexposed beyond repair, it will not let you press the shutter. Actually, it's not even letting me shoot with it on A, because I don't have a battery in it, so that's interesting. But it will not let you take a bad shot, more or less, I guess you could say. So if it thinks you're going to be overexposed, it's going to lock the shutter so that you can't press it down until you adjust your settings accordingly, if you are in the A mode on the lens. So that's an interesting little setting there. And of course, it is a shutter priority camera when it comes to that point. Now, price-wise, I got this for $50 off of Facebook Marketplace. After looking through eBay, you can find them anywhere from that range all the way up to about $100, $150. But I guarantee you, if you were to find this locally, you could probably get it for 50 or under. Reason being is because looking at it, there's not a lot to it. It's, it's got that plastic body to it. It's small. It doesn't look like a fancy Leica or a bigger SLR. It almost looks like it was a toy camera. And so because of that, I feel like you could probably get some good deals on this if you can find it locally. And if you're looking for a budget-friendly 35mm rangefinder, this is definitely one I would check out. Of course, my preference, I'm probably going to stick with the SP. Also, probably going to hang on to this as well. The SP, it just for me is easier and feels better to shoot because I have a little bit more room with the lens. If I'm going to go something compact, I'll probably go to the XA, but I could definitely see myself putting a roll of film in this and just leaving it in the glove compartment, or kind of having it in my bag or at the office or something, so that whenever I want to go and shoot, I have this readily available. So if you're looking for a compact, affordable 35mm rangefinder that's going to give you great results, have great sharp images and be accurate, easy to use, friendly, and just a great budget option, then the Olympus 35 RC is definitely one you should check out. So if you have any questions or comments on the Olympus 35 RC or Palm Panchromatic or anything else, feel free to leave those in the comments below, and I'll go back to you as soon as I can. But for now, that is the Olympus 35 RC.